Hi everyone, welcome. Okay. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Um, Thank you for joining our Rush Q&A. My name is Daniela Ugalde. I'm a Rush OTD graduate. I graduated with the class of 2024. And throughout my experience at Rush, but also prior to Rush, when I was applying to school, I really thought about what's the best way that people can really learn about OT. And that's typically talking to other OTs and hearing about their experiences. And I think what better way to not only learn about Rush, but also learn about all the wonderful things that occupational therapy has to offer you through talking to some of our alumni. So each session we typically follow a different path of OT, and this one is maybe one of my favorites because this is emerging areas of OT. So looking at areas that, maybe aren't your typical common hospital setting, school pediatric setting, and seeing like what else OT has to offer you. So tonight, kind of the format will be I'll introduce our wonderful speakers. Um, they'll give kind of a brief overview of what their day-to-day looks like. And then I'll open up the floor just for some general questions. You can feel free to unmute and ask your question directly, or you could send it in the chat. I'll see it, I'll read it out loud and try to get to everyone's questions, and hopefully we can get some good discussion going. And then for any prospective students on the call, if you could just, we'll follow up with you a little bit afterwards. And if you could just let us know in the chat that you're a prospective student, that way we can reach out to you and give you that 1 hour of observation because I know those are much in need. And we'd love to give that to you guys for being here tonight and for hanging out with us. So yeah, without further ado, Jenna, Claire, if you guys want to introduce yourselves, talk a little bit about when you were at Rush, where you're currently at right now.
Sure, I can go first. I'm Jenna. I graduated from Rush in 2023, so just before you, Daniela. Um, I work at Misericordia Heart of Mercy in Rogers Park in the Chicago area. Yeah, so I've been an OT for about 2 years.
Awesome. My name is Clare Stanhope, and I graduated from Rush in 2021. And originally, I started working in schools. So I did school-based therapy for 2 years. And I also did early intervention during that time. And now I currently work for the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities in the city of Chicago. And my role there, like my title, is training officer. But still an occupational therapist. Basically, what I do is I provide disability-related trainings and programming to the city of Chicago.
Awesome. Thank you both. And both of you guys actually made presentations to explain a little bit more about what you do during your day to day and what that kind of looks like. So if you guys want to go ahead and share and just kind of give us a brief overview about what your day to day might look like.
Sure. Let me share my screen. Can everyone see? Okay. Um, so again, I work at Misericordia Heart of Mercy. Um, I've been here for about a year and a half. Before this, I actually worked at a similar organization that didn't do residential, and was just day programming for adults with disabilities. And I had worked there for years before as a summer camp instructor, and then did my capstone project there through Rush, and ended up leading me down this journey into starting a program there called Catalyst, which was a life skills program for adults with disabilities in the community. Once they finish transition services at age 22, they often don't have a real transition into adulthood. So my program still is around today, and it continues to support people as they transition into adulthood by learning life skills, a little bit more supported and clinically versus what they learn at home. So now, about a year and a half, been at Misericordia. That capstone project led me straight here, which I'm really grateful for. Um, I also did a project through Rush when I was there that was a community engagement project that was at Misericordia. So I've had a lot of like random run-ins with this organization, but I'll get into what it is and things as we move on. I don't need to go through the objectives. So just a little background on why OT. This is an important area, an emerging practice area. Occupational therapists, we support people throughout the lifespan. As kids usually are covered through insurance with disabilities up to a certain age, but then after that, their needs don't decline, their needs don't go away, and there are a lot of transitions that continue to happen, and diseases and other pathologies, again, that continue to be experienced by these individuals where they could continue to benefit from our services, but unfortunately don't qualify through insurance. We have a really unique role in serving this population as we support people in a very holistic way. We also are really great at promoting health and preventative care, and we address a ton of different factors, as you see here. Yeah, I'll go into more specifics as we go. So where I work now, we have over 600 children and adults with IDD. It's a campus residential setting, so it is huge, and we're expanding and expanding, which is super exciting. Our residents are living to an older age, so we have been experiencing a lot of changes with new things coming up. So with aging, there brings along a lot of other things that we need to think about. So being an OT here has been really challenging, but also very exciting because I get to kind of flex a ton of different muscles. If you guys, I know a lot of you are looking to become OTs, so I don't know how much you've explored other settings, but this setting, we really do pull from every other setting. So we do hand therapy for people who who had a fall and injured their finger. We do home improvements and home modifications for people who are declining or have a new gait change or have a new mobility device that we need to accommodate for. We do assistive technology. We just support people with whatever happens in their lifespan. So it's a really cool setting and very niche. 20% of our residents come from families in poverty, or have no families in our wards of the state. So we have a very, again, kind of unique clientele that we work with because they come from all these different backgrounds. And a lot of them come with some trauma and other social emotional challenges that we try to accommodate for as much as we can. Programs and services. Misericordia has a ton of resources, which is amazing. They have a ton of community partners. They partner with Loyola a lot because we are very close by. We're in Rogers Park. We also coordinate a lot with colleges and have a lot of volunteers that come from colleges. The engineering program at Notre Dame actually comes here every year and engineers us equipment or like wish lists that we have. So last year they made us a two-way ramp to accommodate for showers that we couldn't accommodate for before. So there's a lot of cool things we do here. We also have a lot of on-site services. So we have an adapted dental office that is a little bit more of an accessible environment, both mobility-wise, but also sensory-wise, because that can be a very traumatizing and challenging service for people. We have a fitness center, we have hydrotherapy offered, we have most health services like entry-level health services. We have nursing, dietitians, a PCP, occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, nutritionists, dietitians. So we have a lot of really great services, psychiatrists. And then we also have a whole behavior department too, which is, we do a lot of collaborating with them. And then, yeah, therapy services, I've included most of them here. And then so a lot of the services are residential, but there are day programming and work opportunities on site and off site because there are micro businesses within Misericordia. There's like a bakery, which I highly recommend because it's delicious. There's a bakery, there's a like little thrift store. There's a few other ones. I think we just had a compost service start recently. So if you're in need in the area. So the role of OT at MIS, again, is very widespread. These are some pictures from some of my groups that I run, which I'll get into kind of direct therapy versus the consultative, because those are kind of the two ways that we work here. And then the waivers that we use. So Misericordia is really unique in that we don't bill here, which really opens the door for a lot of possibilities and things that wouldn't be met in other areas. So there are two different waivers, the ICF waiver and the SILA waivers. With the ICF waivers, we can, again, like our services are covered, we can do anything within our ethical and clinical judgment. And then SILA waivers, we are more strictly consultative. Like we don't do rehab when they get back from the hospital. We just kind of go and like give our recommendations, give any equipment that someone needs, and staff training, and then we exit that. So for direct services, we do evaluations and assessments on a ton of different client factors and challenges. We do one-on-one and group sessions. The one on the right back here is a group that I run that's for residents primarily with physical disabilities. And we made like a life-size game board outside, and we played a ton of games that challenged coordination and just use of arms, and it was a ton of fun. And then on the left, this was a lady who came back from a summer camp that really wanted to learn how to make friendship bracelets because at camp she wasn't able to, and she has really only use of her right hand. So we figured it out and worked a few times, and she now makes friendship bracelets, and maybe she also charges staff for them. So she has a little side hustle, which is awesome. Yeah, so we do that. We also work, I want to say, with direct therapy. We do a ton of different things. I have 4 groups. I have a group aimed towards facilitating and maintaining skills for feeding at meal times for residents with dementia. I have a Golden Girls group, which is all of my groups have fun names. Golden Girls is the group for my ladies who are aging and experiencing decline from dementia. It's more of like a social, emotional, fine motor based functional activity group. That was what that first image was in my slideshow, which I should have put here. It's a coffee stand that we all made together. And so they serve coffee every other week to staff. It's like a group of 8 ladies that rotate. I have a Forks and Friends group, which is a cooking group for residents kind of maintaining and building skills. And then this group, which is called Hearts and Hands, because Misericordia's symbol is hearts, and we're working on stretching our hands, among other things, and using them. And then we also do a lot of environment and program development. So we modify bathrooms, we modify community spaces on campus, we modify job sites, we do a lot of things like that. We collaborate. This is more the consultative side. So we participate in a lot of meetings. They are very, very, very diverse in what we do. So we meet with social service, we help with admissions, we will meet if somebody's experiencing a functional decline. We work with nursing, social work, doctors from offsite. We have a physiologist here as well that it's really great to collaborate with her because she helps with spasticity and management strategies, corticosteroid injections, things like that. We do a lot of in-services and hands-on training. We're kind of that bridge for people when they come back from the hospital. We're like the first ones that see them and are the first ones like on the ground most of the time. And then we assess and then just make sure that they're going to be safe in their home and provide any follow-up care. We have a team of therapy aides and interns that help us with home exercise programs, checking on splints, delivering equipment. They're like our eyes and ears too. They often find out things before we find out things. So it's helpful to have them. They're great. We also take students. So we kind of are usually rotating through. And it's always nice to show the chaos and the also amazingness of working here. Um, yeah, communication. We do a lot of emails, meetings again. And then, yeah, we're almost always involved in like big campus initiatives. Like we just designed a new building's bathrooms that is being opened. Well, it's starting to work, but being opened hopefully next year. So we most of the time get pulled into a lot of big planning projects that really test our skills, but we also have a very valuable lens to provide in advocating for our residents and knowing their needs pretty well. Um, yeah, we're also redesigning our sensory room right now. I just got out of a meeting for that, so we do a lot. But I just wanted to take a minute. I love my job. I think that it's such an important avenue that occupational therapy is moving towards. There's a lot more therapists going into working with adults with disabilities and beyond, supporting them in end of life care. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to give you a tour or chat more about it. I love talking about my job. So that's it. I will stop sharing now. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Jenna. I appreciate it. Claire, you want to share?
Yeah, Jenna, your group sounds so fun. I'm like, wait, I want to be a part of that.
Come on through.
I actually did. I got to the chance to go to Misericordia, and I didn't get a chance to cross over with you, but I did see your one of your sensory rooms
Oh,
there.
it needs help. That's why we're revamping it.
I love it. Awesome. Okay, so this is going to be a very different type of setting, which is exactly why we're here today, right? To talk about a couple different non-traditional settings. So I'm going to talk a little bit about OT's role in local government. And please feel free to ask me questions in the chat as you think of them or write them down. We can talk about them at the end too. But like I said, my role here is as training officer for the mayor's office for people with disabilities, or MOPD. I actually started with MOPD as an intern doing my doctoral capstone. So, I feel like Jenna and I both have that in common, where we really like got to connect with populations that we found very interesting during our capstones at Rush. And it's funny because my supervisor from my Rush capstone is still my boss. So that was how I sort of got connected and came back to them. So as training officer, I oversee all of our training services that we do. Um, and so a couple of those and a couple of our programs I'll mention, but I'll also kind of like mention how disability functions in the city government as a larger entity as well. So a couple of the programs I oversee. The first is our substance use prevention program for the deaf and hard of hearing, which I'm going to go over a little bit about how we developed that program in a couple of slides, just so you sort of have some understanding of like OT's role in this program development piece of it, because that is a lot of what you do for your capstone is understand how to develop programs. And it sounds like Jenna like got to develop a program too as part of her capstone, and similarly same. And now I'm using it like every day. So the other program I oversee is our Disabled Survivors of Gun and Community Violence Project. And we just started that program last year. So that program, I didn't explain what the first program does. The first program we refer to as SUPT, and that program we go into schools, mostly in the Chicagoland area, but we actually can serve the entire state of Illinois. We provide substance use prevention curriculum to students who are deaf or hard of hearing in American Sign Language, because a lot of times the substance use prevention curriculum is super verbal. There aren't a lot of visuals. and a lot of the games are not accessible. So we have had this program for 20 years. But during COVID, of course, we kind of stopped doing the program because schools weren't open and things weren't happening. And so it got revamped a couple years ago. And then our Disabled Survivors of Gun and Community Violence Project. In that program, we partner with organizations in the city of Chicago that work on prevention and intervention services, and we help them to make their programming more accessible. Because oftentimes when people acquire a disability as a result of gun or community violence, they don't access services because they don't identify as having a disability, or they aren't able to access those services, and the people who provide those services don't know what to do for them. So we collaborate with them, we help them evaluate their accessibility and provide recommendations for how to increase that accessibility and create some of that community as well. And then lastly, training services. I give a lot of presentations on training and trainings about disability related topics, about inclusive employment practices, about service animals. That's probably my favorite one to give. We have a couple of service animals at our office too that love to model for that one. So any topic, basically we customize topics, and we're a free resource. So we are no cost to any City of Chicago organization to be able to provide those trainings. So we get a lot of employers looking for usually a basic training on disability and accessibility, how to interact with people or coworkers with different types of disabilities. Yeah, also as training services, some things that you may not necessarily think about are like how our city workers get trained on how to interact with the public with people with disabilities. So when I was an intern originally, this project started where we made a training for all employees that get badged at either O'Hare or Midway. So anybody who works at either of those, we created a training for them about how to serve individuals with disabilities in the airport. And we just redid that training this year because, it got a little rusty as it does over time. So we just redid that training. But if somebody needs security clearance at either of the airports, they take a training that we made about disability and how to interact with people with disabilities and all the resources at the airport. Both airports actually have an amazing ADA coordinator. So the Americans with Disabilities Act, there's a great ADA coordinator at both facilities that's responsible for making them accessible, and we consult a lot on that too. So just to give you some ideas about program development for our substance use prevention program, OT is a really good fit in this setting because we essentially know a lot about disability and how to adapt things for different levels. So though the students oftentimes are deaf and hard of hearing, they also sometimes need other types of adaptations. Sometimes these students also have autism or an intellectual or developmental disability. Or if they're deaf, they may also have Spanish as their first language in addition to American Sign Language, in addition to English. So sometimes we're navigating different languages. So OTs are great at understanding how to grade something to be easier or more challenging, especially when you're running a group with a bunch of students who may have different levels of interacting. So we're a good fit for that. We can design the curriculum that way so that everybody can interact. We have a lot of experience running groups. So that can be very helpful for OTs too. And then we sort of understand like the context of occupations and environments and relationships. So the curriculum we use, we don't even talk about substance use for the first 5 weeks of curriculum. We just talk about life skills, forming good relationships, how to make goals, things like that before we even start talking about substance use. So when we were developing this program, obviously, because I love research, we need research to support our program. And so why are we doing it for this population? What gap exists? And then we had to go through all of this curriculum and adapt it to be usable. English is very different than ASL, American Sign Language. So we had to make sure that if somebody's first language was English or somebody's first language was ASL, regardless, they were able to participate or understand the curriculum. So like I said, what's interesting is it's all verbal. It's all meant to be said out loud, which is interesting. There's a big binder you're supposed to read from if you're speaking in American Sign Language. Obviously, you need your hands. You can't be holding the binder. You don't use any visuals, which is so crazy to me. And individuals who are deaf or hard of hearing, they learn a lot through pictures and through seeing examples. So we actually had to get permission from the manufacturer of the curriculum to add all those things in. Some of the games too were really hard because they would say things like they would rely on hearing or things like that. Or something that's just kind of interesting about American Sign Language is English phrases don't always transfer over very well. So the title of one of the games was Nip It in the Bud. It's a marijuana-based game, right? Nip it in the bud does not mean anything in ASL. It does not make any sense. And so we had to like take those cute little things and make it into something that actually had meaning behind it because we know what that means in English, but in ASL it does not make sense. Um, we also have to engage all the stakeholders, which is one of my favorite parts of working in a role like this. Like I love interacting with people with lived experience. I am not deaf myself, so I obviously needed people who are deaf to help make the curriculum and American Sign Language interpreters as well. And then we had to recruit our participants, make new relationships with the schools. I know we have some good positive relationships. We go back to a lot of the same schools. And we're working on making sure that we have program outcomes and evaluating our process. So some of the unique part of OT and government, one thing I think that we don't always value a lot about OT is how much we know about disability. And there aren't a lot of people who learn about disability as part of their career path. So that's really a unique value that OT has that can go really great into a lot of different careers. And we know a lot about a lot of different disabilities. We also understand like how environment impacts people. So, in my role at MOPD, sometimes I have to consult with the Chicago Department of Transportation, right? Like I have to understand how the physical built environment is going to impact somebody because I'm the voice for disability. So if I'm serving on a committee, I have to be the representative of people with disabilities. And that kind of goes into advocacy for populations. It's it's a fun opportunity when we get to consult on policy because we get to say, oh no, this is actually discriminatory for this reason, or have you considered this? Maybe we can change it. It's more inclusive this way. So I really like that piece of it. We also oftentimes are familiar with data just because of the way that we've done that in school. We have research groups, we've done our own research and evidence-based practice. That's what EBP is. So it helps support our programs when we are able to do data. Some things that like I've gotten to do with data, which I think is really cool, is I got to send out a survey to all City of Chicago employees. There are 30,000 of them collecting whether they have a disability or not and what information they're willing to share with us, and then look through the data and kind of understand how many people with disabilities are employed by the City of Chicago, what sorts of supports or accommodations they use, how long they've been with the city so that we can promote employment of people with disabilities within the City of Chicago. So just kind of an example of some things that we've done. I've also gotten to partner with the Chicago Department of Public Health. And very, very, very soon, we're releasing a report on how neighborhood conditions impact people with disabilities in the City of Chicago. So that has been like years coming. So I'm very excited. That should be released in like the next 2 months, but I keep saying that and then it hasn't been released yet. So we'll just see what happens. There's a lot of bureaucracy when you work with government. Okay, I will wrap up my little spiel, but I did just want to say if you're interested in disability related topics, we do have an accessible podcast, which is pretty cool. So you can either listen to it or you can watch it in American Sign Language with closed captions at the bottom of it. So you can scan the QR code on the screen on the left. There are 2 episodes that I'm featured in, which of course I put on the screen. But listen to the other episodes because I've never actually even listened to my own episodes because I'm so embarrassed about them. But I was on an episode about OT and what it looks like in different settings. And then also about making the DNC accessible. When the DNC was here last summer, we did a lot of consultation on how to make that accessible for people with disabilities traveling to and from the city of Chicago. On the right is just an image of our 2 podcast hosts. Lauren Huberman's the director of our Career Center, and our Deputy Commissioner, Christina McLean, who they interviewed the mayor. And what was very, very funny about this podcast episode is that while they were interviewing the mayor, one of the service animals was under the table squeaking on her bone the whole time. You can sometimes hear it throughout. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. I put my email address. It's clarestanhope8@gmail.com. Yeah, and I put our social media on the bottom, of course. So if you are looking for accessible events in the city of Chicago, feel free to follow.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you both so much. Like, even like just like the ingenuity that goes into like both of your careers. And again, like at the end of the day, like we're all OTs, but like it looks incredibly different. Like this is truly what I love about the field and what I think makes it super amazing. So thank you both. At this point, I'm going to open it up to the rest of y'all just for questions. Again, feel free to either unmute and go ahead and ask a question. Again, it could be very specific to one of our speakers, it could be more general OT question, um, and we'll do our best to answer. Or you can go ahead and throw it in the chat. I'll read it aloud and address it to whoever it may go to.
Why did you guys choose Rush University to study?
Okay, I'll go first. I think that's a great question. I'm a very proud Rush alumni. I personally chose Rush because I loved the connection between the school, Rush University, and then the medical setting, Rush University. And I feel like it gives you a lot of opportunity to get hands-on experience. So in your first year, you do practicums, which are rotations through 3 different settings, which is very unique for a program to be able to go into those settings. And it's essentially like a step up from shadowing, but you get to rotate through different settings. So you kind of get to see different areas that you're interested in. So it was really like that connection where I knew that that was going to be a really good fit for me personally, because I'm somebody who really likes to learn through hands-on activities.
Yeah, I definitely agree, Claire. I think Rush, they did a ton of simulated activities too, which sometimes they would even bring in like community partners or people experiencing the challenges that we were learning about. So we got a lot of hands-on, but also like to hear from the people we are actually going to be working with similar folks in the future. They also have a lot of amazing fieldwork sites. Like I got to go to Italy for one of mine for like 3 months, and it was like the coolest thing I've ever done. um, and they had that's one of like yeah, it's Italy, but there's also a lot of really great ones in the States too that prepare you so well for whatever you're going to go into. In Rush 2, the way they structure all the curriculum truly my job is a lot of like on the fly critical thinking. You got to use what you learned and you got to apply it, and Rush prepared me for that. Like they really give you the base of knowledge, they challenge you to develop that critical thinking skill, and then you apply it supported first, but then you're gonna eventually go fly. So they did an amazing job, truly.
On a similar note, but curious if you guys have like a distinct experience, how do you feel like Rush OTD uniquely prepared you both for these distinct experiences or emerging areas of practice?
I would say so. You get, I think it's 2 mentors throughout your time. So your actual mentor, like during your time at Rush, and then your capstone advisor. I'm sure they'll talk more, but yeah, okay, Michelle's nodding. Thank you. It's like, I think I remember. So my capstone advisor is LVP. She's one of the professors here and she's amazing. She had a ton of experience working with adults with disabilities and really guided me, and Dr. Popova too. They both really helped me during my time in my capstone because there was no OT on my site. So it was a lot of, again, on the like figuring it out, but having the support that I needed to do so. And even after graduation, when I was setting up the program at my previous workplace, um, I met with Jenny and LVP out like after I had graduated because they were like invested in me and wanted to support me as I continued. And I had a lot of questions. So they're they're great. The professors, I would say, really have been very supportive and caring, but also very educated and like evidence based all the way. They're really cool people.
I obviously did my capstone at the place that I ended up working. So obviously that prepared me very well. But I feel like I actually gained skills in this non-traditional setting that I don't know that I would have gained in a traditional setting, that I actually then ended up using in school-based practice, which is again is a traditional setting. So I actually really feel like I did benefit from this non-traditional setting because I learned about a lot of like universal design things or just lived experiences of people with disabilities that then I was able to take with me when I worked in the schools. And then obviously I came back and still love it. But yeah. Daniela, do you want me to go on to this next question too?
Yeah, sure. I'll just read it out loud. It says, what was the most difficult part of Rush or anything that you would change about your experience at Rush?
I think that's a very good question. And I think that when you're in it, it's different than when you're looking back. Like I think that the curriculum can be very challenging, but it's supposed to be challenging. You're getting a doctorate and you're getting a graduate degree, right? And when I was in it, I probably would have been like, oh, I would like change this and make it easier, right? But looking back, I actually personally wouldn't change anything about it because I think that even like the challenges of the program made me a better practitioner long term. So I personally wouldn't change anything though if I really could, I would have gotten rid of COVID because I was in school during COVID and that was a tough time for me. Donna, how about you?
Exactly the same thoughts. I was also like when I started the program, it was right when COVID started. So I was like the 2020 swoop in. Um, and I remember being very nervous because how are we gonna do this program? But Rush really adapted well and flipped classes, found out ways to still keep us in person, still had all of my labs in person and like plenty of hands-on, whereas other schools of people that I know, like they were virtual for like the first year even. So yeah, no, Claire, I totally agree. I think it was very challenging. Even sometimes now I like look back at my old PowerPoints and textbooks and things, and I was like, wow, yeah, that was a toughie, but it definitely prepared us well. So
Yeah, and just to add on to that again, very different experience, but a similar boat, right? I was applying to school during COVID. But even just like experiences that I have with Rush outside of maybe that is just like professors and people are willing to adapt, like there's an assignment, hey, I'm feeling like this isn't accessible, or like maybe this could be changed around, or maybe we should be looking at different factors. Like faculty are receptive to feedback and they're willing to work with you if you're willing to work with them. And so I think that teaches you not only a lot of good life skills about just like working with people, and that's really what occupational therapy is about, right? Is like working and cooperating with others and sharing ideas, but at the same time, right, taking ownership of your education, right, and learning to enhance it not only for your betterment, but also for future classes. So I would say that was, like a challenging part. It's always really hard to critically think about your curriculum and what you're receiving and collaborating with others, but also a very rewarding part. So if I had to reflect on that, I think that would be mine.
While we're waiting for questions, would you mind, Danielle, if I shared with some of them about some of the capstones that have come through my setting, just because we've had multiple students with capstones, and I think it might be interesting to hear like some of the different capstones in the same non-traditional setting.
Yeah, absolutely. Please share.
Awesome. Okay, so my capstone, so I actually was the second capstone student that went through MOPD. So the year before, um, that person addressed how to make the hotel industry more accessible for people with disabilities who are traveling to Chicago. And then I kind of piggybacked off that and I made a training. You see this training thing going on with me, but I made a training for students in tourism um, about how to make the tourism industry more accessible. And I gave it to students and did like a pre-post exam about how it impacted their attitudes towards disability. And then I was there at the same time as another student who interviewed people about their experiences going through the airport as a tourist with disability. So that was cool. And then I hosted a fieldwork student, or not a fieldwork student, capstone student a couple of years ago who did mental health and in our career center. and how career placement counselors can help address mental health as part of the employment process. So we started out with a very strong tourism theme, but there's also different projects, and we have somebody who's going to be looking into our home modification program. So we modify homes in the state of Chicago, and they're going to look into how it has impacted independence through interviewing people. So lots of different projects in the same non-traditional location, which I think is cool.
Absolutely. We have our next question. What does the community feel like within the cohorts? Are people within their cohorts close to one another, have a collaborative and supportive feel?
I would say so. I know, I mean, we all went through it together. You kind of you kind of bond over the stress. I remember many nights where we would all like camp out at one of each other's apartments. I roomed one when yeah, I lived with two of my cohort members. So yeah, you definitely make lasting friends. One of them is in my wedding that's next year, you know, so I think that everybody was very supportive. You do a lot of collaborating in your groups, that a lot of classes have like group work and group projects, and you're constantly collaborating. So yeah, I never had a bad experience.
Awesome. Next question is, what personal adjustments do you have to make as a first year student? I like this one.
Okay, this was like now a long time ago for me, but I honestly think the biggest adjustment is making sure that you manage your time. So oftentimes a lot of people are working at the same time. I know I was working at the same time as being in the program, at the same time as now you have field work. So just trying to manage your time, I would say, is like the biggest personal adjustment that you have to do. I really benefited personally from having like a written planner. I like carried that thing with me everywhere. So yeah, I think that was the biggest one for me. I don't know if anyone has anything else.
Same. I think like my calendar became my best friend.
Awesome. What would you say prepared you the most for the OTD program?
I don't know if there was like one thing that prepared me. I think just being this sounds really weird, but like just being a sponge, like just always being willing to learn something new, open-mindedness, um, coming in expecting that you're going to learn something every time you step into that classroom. Yeah, I'd say that's my unexpected lesson too. Just be a sponge.
I think the reason that you have to do so much shadowing to prepare for the programs is because it really does help you prepare. And that's probably true of an OTD or a master's program. Like regardless, that shadowing can be really helpful. And I think like different settings too. Like if I can jump ahead to just this question about like what area of OT do you think you wanted to pursue when you applied, and how did that change during the program? I went into school thinking I wanted to be a hand therapist, which is now like hilarious to me because I'm like, oh my gosh, I couldn't be further from a hand therapist. And then I did not want to work in pediatrics at all. I was like, no way. And then I ended up going into a school-based practice. So I think that like people oftentimes go in with a very clear idea of what they think they want to do, but again, like Jenna was saying, like be a sponge and be open to every opportunity, because the more you explore those different areas, the more you change. And that's what's so cool about an OT degree is your one degree, like you can switch and hop around different settings and you're prepared to do them all.
Yeah, I honestly don't think I came in with a set image of what I wanted to do with NOT, but I always knew I wanted to do something with the IDD population, but had no idea that I could like do this for a living and be an OT in this field. So that kind of blossomed in my time at Rush, of like understanding that there's a huge need and a huge role here and opportunities.
Absolutely. And I know you guys kind of answered a variety of questions. And I know you guys touched a little bit on the unexpected lesson and then what you wanted to pursue and how that changed during the program. And that's kind of one of my favorite questions too, is just to kind of see like you learn so much more about what OT looks like and what it can look like. But then you're also like again kind of forced to use your clinical reasoning like in these emerging practices and be like, well, maybe it hasn't been done like this, but what can I do with, the foundations that I have? So that's always very exciting. Any other questions? Again, feel free to unmute. We can take a brief pause. You guys can write some questions down. We have about like 10-ish more minutes left. Beautiful. What were your short and long-term goals when starting the program?
That's a good question. I think my short term were kind of based on the semester because each semester you really have some of the classes build on each other. Like there's a few that are like level one, level two, and you keep going. Um, I think my short was just again like learning, like making it through the semester. Some semesters were challenging. But there were definitely some where there was a lot more of like one goal versus like a lot of different ones in different classes. Um, yeah, I don't know if that really answers that. But long-term goals, I think just finding the path that a path that I wanted to take and building the skills to be successful in that. I think once I had my capstone in mind, the goal became my capstone, like preparing for that, since it was going to be less guided, like more on my own. So that took a lot of prep work and definitely pulled from a lot of my classes for that.
I think for me, like going through school, I didn't have short-term goals because my long-term goal was to be an OT and I wanted it so badly. Like everything you do is to be an OT. And I think now, though, what's interesting is I think I would say I have like a lot more short-term goals now. Like I have like all these different practice areas I want to learn more about or engage in. Like when I was in schools, I really wanted to be an EI therapist as well. Like there, I think like as you go and you learn more, you like make new goals for yourself as you're like, oh, I kind of like I have a friend who just got certified in pelvic floor therapy. Like I think you learn these new cool things that you're like excited to learn about. So in my opinion, like it kind of flipped. Like my long-term goal was to be an OT, and then once I was an OT, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna make new short goals to like learn more about different things.
That's such a good answer, Claire. So that's on point.
I love it. Is there a benefit to a doctorate versus a master's degree in your perspective and based on your respective fields right now?
I would say definitely. I wouldn't be in the job I'm in if I didn't get my doctorate truly. Like my capstone led me directly here. It gave me the opportunity, much like Claire, to build the skills that I needed to then translate that into a job. Um, yeah, so definitely. There's also a little pay up for my setting, getting a doctorate versus a master's.
I think for like me personally, I think there's huge benefit because in my non-traditional setting, I think like it gave me a lot of leadership skills, which I think are hard to acquire otherwise. So for me, like I gained a lot of leadership skills. Those program development skills too are mostly like a doctorate level thing. And I think that, I mean, I use that every day in every way. Like it's so helpful to me. So I personally really advocate for the doctorate. I also I was like, oh, another year and I can have this doctorate. That's great. I know like not all settings necessarily have a pay bump, but there are a lot of settings who do have a pay bump. And I think there are also other benefits, like especially in a non-traditional setting. Um, I will just say, like, for me, people like see that I have a doctorate and I do get a little bit more respect. So people oftentimes like listen to what I'm saying, which they should anyways. But it's very interesting to see how it like plays out in a non-traditional setting too, where like people are like, oh, a doctorate, okay. And I'm like, oh no, it's just like it's no big deal. But it's interesting how like that different level of degree pays out.
Thank you both. Okay, we're nearing to the end. Any last minute questions?
I have a question. I have a question for Claire, actually. I wanted to ask you about your experience working in a school. What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? And why did you decide to move on to a less traditional setting?
Ooh, what a good challenging question. Okay. There was like layers to that question, so I'm gonna try and answer them all. What did I like about schools? I loved working with the students. I worked primarily in a transition program, so very similar to like what Jenna does. Like I got to do a lot of community-based things, which I just absolutely loved. Like I loved going to the grocery store. I loved going to their jobs with them. I one of the classes that I ran or groups was a home modification, a home maintenance program. And so we would like practice making beds and we'd practice doing all the laundry, but I'd be like, we're actually doing laundry today. So like we all the real life skills that like makes being an OT so fun. I love doing those things. So I really liked working in the school setting. I think for me personally, there's a lot of paperwork and meetings in that setting. And also, you are very bound by legislation because it's very clearly outlined, both in state law and in federal law. Some people really like that about the job. They like having a very clear delineation of like what they do and what their role is, and interacting with the families. Like I know a lot of people really like that. For me, I got frustrated about the limitations of what I could or could not do. And so I was like, well, I'm going to go into government where I can see how the sausage is made. I want to know how these policies are made. So that was sort of why I was interested in going into a non-traditional setting because I wanted to sort of be in the room where it happens. But I did really, really love school settings too. There are pros and cons to every setting. Did that answer your question, or did I not get one of the layers?
Yes. Yes, thanks a lot.
Okay.
That's really cool. Also, the like home maintenance thing, I'm like, oh, that's awesome because there's still stuff that I like don't know about like maintaining my home, you know? But yeah, very cool. Thank you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was fun. We like had a garden. We'd go out and tend to our garden. I learned some things about that. It was pretty fun.
It's amazing like how much you learn about like even your own like daily activities or trying to teach someone. I say because I'm currently a school-based OT. So there's a lot of things where I'm like, I do this a lot, but how do I break it down and make it really, really teachable, which is kind of an exciting part about OT, right? And that's what you do, again, probably in your settings as well with the different populations you guys work with, whether that's legislators or other adults with IDD, like that's what you're doing. You're breaking it down, you're making some simple tasks more accessible. Love it.
That's awesome. What grades do you work with?
I do primarily elementary. Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome. Any other questions? I really like that one.
Well, I can just add really quickly. Hi, everyone. Nice to see a number of prospective students here. I'm Bridget Hahn. For those of you that may not know me, I'm the director of admissions here at Rush. And if you may not have seen, I'm sure I missed Michelle's introduction with her lovely dogs, our program coordinator who's super supportive. I just want to make sure to have time and space to give a big thank you to Daniela for facilitating these alumni Q&A sessions that I've just found to be so enriching for me as a faculty member and supportive. And also a huge thank you to Claire and Jenna. I don't know if it came up that they are in the midst of really big life things happening and have whole lives outside of OT and Rush. And we're just really grateful. And I think it's really a testament to Rush, just that you all are here and giving your time. So thank you to that. Thank you, Michelle, for taking time out of her evening and her little dog time to come hang out with us too, and make sure that you all get your perspective student shadowing hours. And I'll turn it over to you guys if there are other questions before my little guy comes in here screaming again. Good night, all.
Awesome. Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and wrap up.
I'm just going to put my email in the chat so that everybody has it if they want to reach out.
Yes, please do. If you guys are open and willing to, that would be amazing. I'll stick around for a little bit longer if anyone just has any general questions, Rush OTD wise. But again, huge thank you to Jenna, to Claire. Truly appreciate your perspective and your knowledge. And this was really fun and exciting just to kind of see um, see how Rush has shaped OT, see how wonderful individuals can shape OT and shape our world. It's really exciting and very meaningful. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for your time. And if you're a prospective student, you can go ahead and shoot me not only your name, but also your email. That way I can make sure that you get your hour of observation. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Have a wonderful night.
Thanks for hosting.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Good luck, everyone.
Bye.